Welcome to everyone here. It's really lovely to have your attendance and to allow us to use your time today to just give you some information on this very valuable topic. So we are here with CTU's annual Workplace Skills Plan and Annual Training Report online event. And this year we've partnered with UXi Artisan Development. And I'm very excited to introduce our panelists to you as well. But before we get into introductions, I just want to reiterate the following. All mics are muted and cameras are off. It'll remain that way, except for our panelists. The chat room or chat box is available for you to post questions and engage with one another. Please feel free to do so. And then questions that you post will be addressed in the last 20 minutes of this event. Please keep that in mind. All right. So I think before we just jump into our conversation, let's just quickly give each of our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. I think, Denise, can we start with you? Oh, just make sure your mic's unmuted.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise. I am the project manager for UXi Artisan Development, and I'm here today to speak to you regarding Workplace Skills Plan, mandatory grants. So I'm excited to share my knowledge with you today.
Thank you so much. Charmaine, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm all the way from George. My expertise is in BEE and skills development. I'm also from head office here at UXi. So my expertise is on BEE strategy. So I had to implement BEE strategy in a company that I worked for about 10 years. And then I also did do consultation on BEE. So very excited to share some insight into that with everyone.
Fantastic. Okay, and Emerensha from your side representing CTU as well.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the session. I'm the National Skills and Business Development Manager for CTU Training Solutions. Been with CTU for 9 years, been in the industry of skills development for 25 plus years. So hopefully I can bring some expertise to the session for you this morning. If there's any questions to be asked, please feel free to ask them.
Thank you so much. All right, let's get into it. So we are going to take this into a phased discussion. We're going to start the first part of the discussion will be focused on discretionary grants. And that Denise, I'll mostly address to you. We're going to then move over to Charmaine's expertise and then close off with Emerensha. So Denise, let's just jump into it. The first thing I want to know is, can you maybe explain to us the process and the benefits of obtaining mandatory and discretionary grants for skills development?
Yes, sure. So let's start with the mandatory grants. So companies have been paying skills levy for years, but not everyone knows that you're going to get a little bit of that money back by just submitting a workplace skills plan on a yearly basis. By just submitting a workplace skills plan, you can get 20% of your skills levy back from the CETA on a quarterly basis. With the discretionary grants, once you have submitted a mandatory grant, you are eligible to apply for a discretionary grant. So just for people that does not know what a discretionary grant is, a discretionary grant is that you can apply as a company for funding for training. You will be able to receive 49% of your skills levy that you've paid back into skills development funding. And then this funding can be used to upskill your staff or upskill unemployed people. And you can also use this funding to report on your completed training, on your mandatory grant, and also part of your BE spend.
All right, wonderful. And then let's talk about eligibility for grants. What are the key requirements for businesses to qualify for these grants, and how can they maximize their chances of success?
Well, just by being a levy-paying entity who pays your levy to source, you are eligible to apply. And then obviously companies who have shown interest by upskilling their staff already by implementing training at their companies.
So just basic ground floor training can also qualify for this?
Definitely.
Right. And then in order to maximize the grant impact, how do these grants help in reducing unemployment, which we all know is one of the greatest challenges that our country struggles with? And what advice do you have for businesses to make the most out of it?
So when applying for a discretionary grant, you can apply for your employees that work for the company, and you can apply for unemployed learners too. In this way, you're able to give the learners a chance to have an opportunity to study and to gain practical experience at the workplace. So if you apply for funding, you also receive a learner allowance, which you will be able to pay to these learners. So this helps the learners to get to work, and for companies not to be able to pay all of the salaries out of their own pocket as well. The learners that are currently busy studying also needs practical experience as well. So by placing the learners at your workplace will help you to use these learners also as support staff and to make these learners eligible for a permanent position. So while they're busy studying their theory and their practical, they put this on their CV, and it makes it easier for the learner then to find a work, because most of the learners currently out there gets practical experience, only theory experience. And then when they apply for work, they are not able to find a permanent position because they don't have practical experience.
Makes sense. And in relation to this, are there any tax rebates related to
Yes.
the discretionary grants?
So if you either if you are busy with a learnership at your company, so if you have some of your staff members that is busy with a learnership, so that means a program more than 12 months, they are able to get tax rebate on their staff or on unemployed learners. So it is a 80,000 Rand tax deduction per year that a company is eligible for. And so you can think if you have 5 to 6 learners at the end of the day, you'll be able to cover your tax at the end of your financial year as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think just to ensure that we had some people join in while you were speaking, and I think we can just maybe summarize some of the points that we just went through, if you don't mind, Denise. So we talked about understanding the process and benefits of obtaining mandatory grants. We talked about eligibility or the requirements for businesses, and also about maximizing it, especially in terms of assisting in the unemployment rates in South Africa, and then the tax rebate. So if you could maybe just summarize what we just discussed for anyone who just joined a little bit later now.
So by doing your workplace skills plan, let's start from the beginning. If you're a skills levy paying company that pays your 1% skills levy to source, you are eligible to submit a mandatory grant. A mandatory grant is on reporting on your employees, training that has taken place already, and also complete training that you want to do as a company within the year. And you compile all that information on a yearly basis. It gets submitted in April. And then also after the mandatory grant season, a discretionary grant season opens up where companies then can apply for funding for training to upskill their own staff or to get unemployed youth to be part of the training. Also, there are tax benefits when you have a person in training, where you were able to get 80,000 Rand tax deduction per learner. So the more learners you have in your company, the more your tax deduction will be at the end of the day. And with also just the system, but Shaman will cover that topic, you can also use the mandatory, the discretionary grant funding as part of your BE requirements on your skills development spend.
Right, that actually leads us to the next phase of our discussion, which is relating to BE strategy alignment. And Shamaina, this is where you come in. So I think where we can start there is just to understand how can businesses effectively align their BE strategies with their broader vision to unlock potential opportunities and to even drive performance.
Okay. So I like visuals and slides. So I'm just going to share a slide just to make it a bit easier for everyone.
100%.
Okay.
So while you are sharing, I'm just going to mention it to the audience again. We are going to share the recording with everyone here today. So if you did miss anything or you would like to just go recap again, we will send it to you within the next 48 hours.
Okay. Colleen, is my slide showing correctly?
Looks perfect.
Okay, cool. So for me, or a lot of people find BEE quite complicated and overwhelming because obviously it's legislation. But working in strategic sessions with BEE, I always believe that if you start off with a bit of a shift in mindset, it makes it a bit less overwhelming. So I've got a quote that I always use when talking about BEE strategy, and it says, don't limit your challenges, but challenge your limits. Because I feel a lot of people feel that BEE has got a lot of limitations. So my perspective is always to, instead of looking at BEE requirements first, being overwhelmed and then find ways to implement that, is to first look at your business objectives and strategy and then find opportunities within BEE requirements that can help your business grow and expand. And I just want to demonstrate it with a few examples. So for skills development, part of the requirements is the training of unemployed learners, learnerships, apprentices and internships, and also skills development of your internal staff. So opportunities within training unemployed could be things that you can implement in your recruitment strategy. So if you make it part of your business strategy to kind of look after the unemployed that you are training, they can become part of your organization later. The same with learnerships and apprenticeships. By funding learnerships and apprentices, you can also deal with any scarce skills that you potentially have in your business. If you're struggling to find specific job specifications or people that have those skills, you can also invest through learnerships and apprentices to get that scarce skills in future. It's also important to align skills development, for example, with your employment equity plan, because to improve your employment equity plan, it's sometimes you are required to train employees. And if you make that part of your skills development strategy and BEE, it benefits your business in the long term. For ownership, for example, there's opportunities of partnering with companies that can give you growth opportunities within your business. Certain sections of your business, depending on what type of business you're in. Enterprise development, there's quite a lot of points that you can score on suppliers that is EMEs or at least 51% and 30% women-owned businesses. If you invest in enterprise development, there's opportunities for you to transform your enterprise development spend into suppliers and gain a lot of points in that sphere. Socioeconomic development is you can impact projects in communities where you do business and also in places where your employees reside, which obviously helps with staff morale. So if you look at those types of opportunities and find things that would enhance and grow your business rather than just looking at the requirements and trying to tick boxes in order to implement BEE strategy, it makes it a bit easier for the implementation part of strategy.
Right. I actually personally also prefer a little bit of a visual representation because it gives you the bigger picture, but in a very quick snapshot. Right. Charmaine, would you want to continue or should we just continue with the questioning process as well?
You can continue with the question, yes.
Right. All right. So the next part, and you kind of did give us a bit of a snapshot, but maybe you can also provide us some information on the current BEE landscape and the critical elements for business beyond what you've already shared with us.
Okay. So I want to focus on two specific elements that I feel is going to have quite a big impact on your BEE strategy going forward. One of them is the proposed amendments to the Employment Equity Act. I do feel that if you want to successfully implement the proposed amendments, there is going to be a requirement to align those types of strategies in your employment equity plan with your management control and skills development element. So the exercise that you would have to do with employment equity plans is to really align your strategy with what you are doing on your BEE management control element and also your skills development element, because those three things talk to each other very much. Your employment equity plan includes that you improve your figures to align with EAP, and that would require upskilling employees to different levels, which obviously affects your BEE score. And I think if you align those three things, then it makes the implementation so much easier, and it also aligns with your business growth and business strategy over the next 3 to 5 years. The second thing I want to mention is about changes with CETA and legacy qualifications that will expire this year in June, which means that we are going over to a new occupational qualifications that is registered with QCTO. So a lot of legacy qualifications that is possibly part of your skills development strategy at the moment has a chance of being expired, and you'll have to go over to occupational qualifications. So it's very important that you make sure that your training providers are registered to offer QCTO qualifications, and also in future when CETA offer discretionary grants, a lot of those will be based on QCTO qualifications going forward, and legacy qualifications would not be applicable anymore.
This is quite a vital point. So please,
Yes.
to our audience, please pay attention to this. And as Charmaine mentioned, it's important to work with a training provider that does take this into consideration and advises you accordingly as well. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Then, well, this kind of ties in with our next topic or question is, what are common challenges businesses face when implementing their BEE initiatives, and how can they overcome these to achieve their objectives?
Definitely two ones that I do find is the biggest challenges is obviously the costs of implementation. A lot of businesses, especially smaller type of businesses with limited resources, struggle to implement as they feel that it's additional costs for them. So one of the ways that I would suggest to overcome this challenge is to utilize the initiatives that is offered by government, and that is that Denise mentioned, the mandatory and discretionary grants, also benefiting from tax incentives that are offered by the government. But it's very important that when you implement BEE, that it is aligned with your skills development plan and where you are able to then apply for mandatory and discretionary grants. Those things definitely need to talk to each other so that the benefit that you gain is to reduce the cost that you are spending on training. And that's very important, that when you do your skills development plan is to take all of these elements into account so that you can maximize by these additional funds and the amount that you spend on BEE training. So it will definitely alleviate some of the costs that you have. If you train unemployed, if you absorb some of the trainees that you have trained, it could save you costs on recruitment. It could reduce your staff turnover. If you train your internal employees and promote them, and if you invest in supplier management and enterprise development, those types of money can also impact your bottom line in the long term through you improving your relationships with suppliers and the quality of service that you get from them. So instead of looking at just the costs of implementing BEE, if you take into account all these incentives and investments that you do in things like supplier management and enterprise development, in the end, you could alleviate your cost quite dramatically by just looking at it from a different perspective. Also there's also a huge administrative burden, and people feel overwhelmed with the complexity of legislation. And my suggestion there would be to partner with a long-term expert that can help you streamline the process and strategy for employment equity so that it's part of your current business strategy and it's not something separate that you're trying to implement by ticking boxes. And also to make sure that the administrative burden of applying for mandatory and discretionary funds, tax incentives, that you make that all part of your strategy when implementing BEE. It really reduces the administrative burden and it makes it much easier to streamline the process if you look at all of those things together.
Fantastic. That was actually going to be the next question that we did prepare, was to understand how we can reduce the administrative burden, and that's the stigma around this whole process. And yeah, but thank you so much for that, Charmaine. That does offer some insightful advice, but at the same time, keep in mind what needs to change as well. I think, again, we had a few people join while you were talking. And as we did with Denise, perhaps it would be, we actually just had another one join in. I think it would be wise just for us to summarize this particular points that were discussed about BE strategy alignment, the landscape, and just the common challenges in implementation. So perhaps if you can just quickly run through a few of those again, that would be great.
Okay, so I think this slide kind of summarizes everything that I've discussed. So BE strategy for me is having a bit of a mind shift change in how you implement BEE. So firstly, just think about the implementation differently. How can you use the BEE requirements to grow and expand your business rather than looking at the requirements and trying to implement that into your business? Because I do feel, and from experience in implementing this in a business, you can find a lot of opportunities to enhance and grow your business and not just make it a bit of a tick box to try and adhere to BEE requirements. So that is one of the things. Then on the one hand, it's very important that you streamline things like your employment equity plans, because that talk to your management control element, for example. It also talks to your skills development scorecard and plan, because it does mean that to improve on your employment equity plan, you may have to train employees. So you need to make sure that there's alignment there. The same with if you implement BEE and skills development and you want to benefit on the costs there by getting discretionary mandatory grants, it's important that you also align that strategy with your BEE implementation and skills development. Secondly, it's very important that you integrate employment equity, like I mentioned before, because that, with the new amendments, is going to make it much more easier to implement if you look at this as a group. Skills development blueprint, for me, that's very important, because a skills development plan needs to cover quite a few things. It needs to make sure that your training initiatives improve your productivity of your business, but it also needs to create a supplement on your recruitment strategy. So if you train people, you need to make sure that if you can absorb them, that they become a productive worker in your company. It could make it easier for you to find new staff if you are using staff that you have trained before. It also helps you to get access to mandatory and discretionary funds, so that will definitely reduce your cost on training. Also, Section 12H and other tax benefits when you do skills development planning on BEE and spend. And it's also very important that when you train, when you expend on training, that you make sure that the training implementation is successful, because you also want to make sure that the learners that you do train is properly qualified and that you end up with quality students. So the training process definitely needs to be managed as well after you have made that spend.
Fantastic. Charmaine, do you have any other slides on your presentation you want to run through?
No, that is all. Thanks, Carlene.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Very, very informative. And I think before I move on to Emma Rensha's section of our discussion, I just want to encourage our audience again, please make use of the chat bot if you want to ask any questions in advance so that we can have them at the ready for the last part of the session. If you come up with any questions now or while they're talking, please feel free to drop it and we will address them. Otherwise, please, continue to enjoy the informative information that's being shared. All right, Emma Rensha, over to your section of our discussion, which is more relating to trends in skills development. So can you perhaps elaborate on the most significant trends in skills development you've observed over the past few years and their impact on businesses, but as well as learners?
Yes, and I think it will fit in very well with Charmaine and Denise's discussion. You know, as we realize there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of tick boxes that we need to tick to get to a point in our training and skills development. But if you look at the trends over the last few years, you know, there's definitely been a change in how we do things. And for us in South Africa, it's quite challenging because, you know, in our skills development environment, we've got to balance our digital transformation. We need to think of our B-BBEE compliance, and then how does that all fit into our training strategies? So if we look at what's changed and where we're heading to, and looking at over the past few years, you know, we're looking at stuff like adaptable methodologies. We've realized that we can't use just the stock standard training. You know, people can't just get theoretical training for a few months or a year or 2 years and then go into the workplace. It just doesn't work. So if we look at the adaptable methodologies, we're looking at more practical approach to training, you know, on-the-job training, you know, give them an environment. Don't just give them technical knowledge or just give them theoretical knowledge. Let them implement it in the workplace. And that forms part of the upskilling. And, you know, we're looking at blended learning. We all know now we're all online. So a lot of our training happens online, but there's also a practical component on it. And, you know, there's research. So we try to make it more adaptable for the candidate to not just get book knowledge, but that they actually can implement it. So that's extremely important. And then another trend that's been coming to the forefront is your continuous learning. It's no use just doing 1 or 2 training courses and then you think you now know everything and you can just move on for the next 10 years. Continuous learning is extremely important and it's becoming a big thing that people, you know, every year there needs to be upskilling continuously. If there's with our fast changing industry, especially in the technical industry, you know, there's so many things happening. Normally you could have planned for 10 years in advance and your plans worked perfectly, you know, every step of the way it was 100%. But now, I mean, you can have a 5-year plan, then within the first year, there's so many changes that you need to adjust. So continuous training is relevant, to keep relevant and competitive in the market is essential. And then also another thing that we look at, and we set adaptable methodologies, and meaning that is the delivery of our training. But if we look at the qualifications that we have, Charmaine, you have referred to legacy qualifications that's expiring now or that's retiring now at the end of June, and they are being replaced by occupational certifications. And, you know, the reason, if you look at the comparison between the two, our legacy qualifications were normally our stock standard qualifications. It was a generic qualification. You got the information. If you want to be a programmer, you do programming, and you will have a basic understanding of programming. Where with your occupational certifications, we're looking more at job-specific qualifications. You know, what is needed in the industry? Where's the scarce skills? Where's the critical skills? And the qualifications and certifications. I mean, if we look at the Microsoft role-based programs now, you know, it's very specific around a job description and what is needed in a specific job role, and that is how they've been adjusting the qualifications. And that one reason is, you know, if we look at that, I know it's quite daunting to know because we so used and it's so familiar, our legacy qualifications, and it's easy to plan. But if we look at our occupational qualifications, it's definitely advanced, and it's been improved so that it fits into the scope of where we're going. And, you know, I think it's going to be a bit of a mindset change for us, but I think it's definitely a positive look to the future, and the changes that we can see in that. So, yeah, we're happy with that one.
Definitely in agreement with that. And then you did touch a bit on this, but what strategies do you recommend for training providers to stay ahead of rapidly changing trends in skills development?
You know what, for any training provider, and it is a fast changing industry, you know, we can't just be a training. I always tell my clients, you're not just a training provider. We can't just deliver training. That is not possible anymore. And it's not the need for our clients. A customer is looking for more than that. So we firstly need, as training providers, we need to understand our clients' needs. We need to understand the industry. What is needed? What is the relevance in the industry? What is the skills, critical skills? How do I make, after I've completed the training intervention, how do I make a person more employable? And that is all the areas that we need to look at. And, you know, we also need to understand in South Africa, like I said, we're a very unique country when it comes to skills development, because we've got aspects that's not so much relevant overseas, but in South Africa, you know, if you look at your B compliance, your employment equity, there's a lot of other aspects that forms part of it. And that's where your training provider needs to be on top of it, because we don't just, like I said, deliver training, we deliver solutions. You know, you need to start at recruitment. You need to look at rural environment upskilling, urban environment upskilling. You need to look at, there's so many other factors that you need to look at. Employment, you know, supplying our clients with the correct candidates to improve and make their workplace and their workforce stronger. So you can't just stick with, we're doing training, we deliver intervention, and then we move on from there. You need to look at a solution to our clients. And I think that is the most important part from a training provider's point of view, what to look at.
And you've worked with many sectors in this space, Marisha. How do their skill set priorities vary? And where did you see a lot of overlapping take place? Because again, many sectors have many different training needs, but there seems to be a bit of a golden thread popping up with the digital age moving forward now. So perhaps you can elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, and I think that is the important point that you've just raised, the golden thread for the technical age. You know, with 4IR, we're all familiar with that term. And I think if you look at the industries in different sectors, you know, there was always very specific needs for very specific industries. And yes, we still have that. You know, you're still going to have specific needs in your banking sector, your insurance sector, whichever sector you look at. But if there's a definite generic skills that's needed across the board, and with the changes that is now popping to the forefront as well. I mean, if we're looking at and I'm just going to name a few that's a definite generic skill that is needed across the sectors. I mean, if you look at your management and leadership skills, every company needs someone to make critical decisions. They need team leaders. They need operational managers to, you know, perform the tasks, do the rollouts of the projects. So that is not just in one specific industry or sector out there. It's across the board. It's essential to the success of every company. And then the one that I think it's the most important one that I think it was boxed a lot in the past because, you know, of where we started and where we are now and where we are moving to is our technical proficiency. You know, we always said, no, it's only the IT companies, only mining industry. It's only the plumbers and the artisans that needs technical skills. Not so much anymore. If you look at across the board, doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're in banking, you're going to need an IT guy. So your technical proficiencies has exploded, if I can say it in that way. You know, we all want to go green. Everybody is forcing, you know, or pushing to go onto a green platform where we don't have any more paper-based. We want to limit all those areas so that we can be more efficient. And for that to happen is everything is going into the cloud. Everybody needs someone in IT. All the programs we have needs in-house technical experience people to maintain it. So technical proficiency, I think, is something that, and unfortunately at the moment, that is where our most critical and scarce skills are lying. Or not unfortunately, I mean, I think it's a good thing because it actually gives everybody an opportunity to grow in a new area. Because even if I'm a dentist, I need to know how to operate this very difficult equipment that I'm working on. And if you go look at that, it runs on a little motherboard and you just press a few buttons. So even your dentist is going to need those skills. And that is what's nice about it. You know, that's a skill that's across the board. And it actually helps that everybody can be upskilled to a certain extent in their technical proficiency. I mean, if you look at your company's, your workforce in your company, you know, everybody thinks they can use Excel. A lot of people are self-taught on Excel, but we don't use it to our fullest capacity. And if people realize in your company, if someone actually gets trained and upskilled on Excel, and I'm using a stupid example, a very basic example, it will, for your time management of that company, the proficiency of your staff will improve so much because you actually give them a tool to make their work easier and they work faster. So for your company, it is a better option. You know, it makes it more proficient. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of technical skills, technical proficiencies that I feel is needed and across the board. And that's definitely one of the most critical skills that I can nationally and on an international level at the moment. And then obviously there's your soft skills that you're looking at, you know, your communication. I think we've lost a bit of communication skills after, and yes, I'm doing the COVID thing, but yes, we have lost a bit of skill. You know, communication has changed the way we do things. I mean, look at this. We normally had meetings we had to rent a venue and we had people sitting in front of us. Now we're all doing it on Teams. And not even that. I mean, a lot of companies, they work on skeleton staff at the company, but most people work from home. So a lot of the way we communicate and has been lost over the last few years. And I think it's essential, you know, with bad communication, you're not going to get anywhere. And mentioning communication in the same breath, I also want to say customer service, because remember, we've got our internal and external customers, and we've lost the ability, and there's definitely a big gap in the way people communicate and our customer service. And that is essential to the success of any company. And then the last one that I want to touch on, a generic skill that's across all borders, I would say, is adaptability and problem solving. I mean, we've just come to a point now where we've realized that, you know, technical proficiency, everything is moving so fast. So you need to have staff that's adaptable, that can, you know, they can, on a drop of a hat, you can think of how to solve problems, because that is because of the fast moving pace of the industry. That happens all the time. And if you can have that soft skill and you can upskill your staff on being adaptable, and you know, you can improve their critical thinking skills, it will be a success to your company. It will be definitely successful. So yeah, that you know, we can't box industries anymore. There's definite skills that is above all industry specifics. And that is where, when you do the planning with what Denise and Charmaine has just spoken about with our BEE and our workplace skills plan, when you do your planning, that is the type of skills that all companies must look at. So it doesn't matter who you are, what company or what industry specific sector you're in. That is the kind of skills that you need to know. You know, put it into your mandatory grant, upskilling your staff, do continuous growth for your staff in those specific skill areas.
Absolutely. I think that touched on our next topic, which was to talk about your advice specifically for not just clients or potential businesses seeking these solutions, but also to providers, even to learners, to ensure that they remain current with these trends. And I think, again, it comes down to the rapid digital advancement that we are seeing. In one of our recent webinars that we hosted with an AI specialist, one of the topics that came up was that the technological advancement that we saw in the past 10 years, let's say from 2010 to 2020, that time span is now as short as 2 to 3 years. So things are advancing even more rapidly than they did in the past 10 to 20 years. Things that happened in 20 years are now happening in 3 years. So
Exactly,
and I think you have touched on it, but perhaps if we can conclude your section on your top pieces of advice for companies, learners, and providers to just remain current with these trends.
Yeah, look, as I've discussed in the previous topics, is that, you know, we realize it, and you've just stated it now as well. We've realized there's a lot of change happening, and you know, if we look at the generation gaps, you know, you've got your school leavers that's just, they might be a little bit more their tech savvy might be a little bit more than the people that's been in the industry for a while. But across the board, you know, they might not have the soft skills. So there's a definite line of skills that's needed. And I think for any company, I mean, we've got the money to spend on skills development. Denise explained to us how to get the benefits out of it. Charmaine explained to us how we can get the benefits out of spending on skills spend. But I think for us to implement it correctly, it shouldn't just be a tick box exercise. We really need to think about, why do we want to do the upskilling? And, you know, we've got the tools to our availability. How do we use it properly? So my first thing will be is to tell someone, you know, a company needs to look at the partnership they form with a training provider. It shouldn't just be a training provider and you hop, skip and jump to them and, you know, you get the training, you do a little bit of Word here and a little bit of Excel there and whatever, you know, just training interventions. It should be a partnership. You should collaborate with someone that understands the industry, that knows what is needed, because you've got the money to spend. You want to make an improvement of your staff so that it benefits your company. You want to make them employable. You want them to not change jobs all the time because they just can't function in the environment that they're in. So how do I make that relevant? You find someone that you can partner with that can either firstly give you staff members, if you do these interventions like Learnerships, that they can actually do recruitment and get you the competent or the relevant, the strong candidates, that you don't just do a tick box exercise with a Learnership, that you actually get a pool of strong candidates that you can actually employ afterwards. So use those benefits. You know, get someone that can help you with the recruitment of them. Find a company a training provider that's got a pool of students that's just been through a process of learning that you can actually employ, you can employ as maybe on an internship that can can supply those candidates. And then, you know, you get a stronger workforce at the end. And then obviously there's aspects like, you know, if you send your staff for training, make sure the company that actually does the training intervention, that you are checking the accreditation part of it. You know, they're not just on a national level accreditation. Make sure the vendor specific training that they do, that they are partners with those vendor specific institutes, and that they actually can deliver the training, and that you get accredited training, because at the end of the day, you know, we want them to have the knowledge, but we also want to make sure that going in future, that knowledge that they've accumulated, that effort they've put into the training actually means something to them. So make sure that the accreditations and the credibility of the training provider is of such that you know that they will benefit from the training. And then, you know, if we look at the South African environment, like I said, rural development is becoming a big thing. We've got big areas, rural areas, where we need to do upskilling. We've got a ginormous amount of unemployment that we feel, you know, we need to upskill the students. And some of them, they just can't get to the urban areas where they can get upskilled. So if you look at forming a partnership with someone, with a training provider, maybe look at someone with a national footprint, you know, that they can accommodate that we can do that. They must be flexible and adaptable to the type of interventions that's a need for the client. You know, can we accommodate that? And I think that is the aspects that you need to look at, because then you look at the delivering an excellent service to not only your client, but you're also making sure that the students and the candidates that comes out of the experience, that it was a good experience, and you know they want to continue their training going forward. You know, it has to be beneficial for not only the company but the students as well.
Fantastic.
That
Thank
in
you
a
so much,
nutshell, I would
Lorraine.
say that's what you need to look at.
I think as we near the end of our discussion, if we are a bit of ahead of schedule, which is great, we can always save more time. I actually want to give our panelists an opportunity to maybe just share a little bit of information on the service delivery that they do offer at their businesses. Not only are we collaborating in this specific webinar, but the company CTU and UXi Artisan Development also collaborate in terms of service delivery. So I think perhaps Charmaine, Denise, from your side, what if clients have or businesses have a specific need, what are the needs that you can address?
So from a UXi perspective, we are currently assisting companies by submitting their mandatory grants on their behalf. We are consulting with the companies to ensure that they get the maximum requirements and they meet the minimum requirements when submitting the mandatory grant, by assisting the services of also submitting their discretionary grants also. Consultation with our clients to say, this is the scarce skills, this is something that you said in your mandatory grant that you need as a company to upskill your own staff, or to give unemployed people the chance also to applying for your company for unemployed, but assisting with the unemployment rate of South Africa as well. So also, should a company then receive a discretionary grant, we also offer the project management of this training as well. And also the BE consultation basis, we do not submit we do not submit the certificate, but we do the consultation, ensure that they meet the requirements. And then also, we also assist with the EE submissions in January, which needs to be submitted on the 15th of January. That's the Employment Equity Plan. I just also, I don't think I mentioned, Carlene, that part of the mandatory grant submissions, the close-off time is the 30th of April. So that's the only time you have chance to submit your mandatory grant. So please ensure that if you are interested in submitting your mandatory grant, it needs to be done before the 30th. We do not recommend to wait until the 30th because the systems are slow. The closer you get to the deadline, the slower the systems get, and also sometimes the system crash. So we submit all our mandatory grants for our clients at least 2 to 3 weeks before the deadline to ensure that they still have an input before the submit button is pushed.
That's why it's the busiest time of the year for you.
Very busy.
All right, and then Emerentia from CTU Training Solutions side, could you perhaps just elaborate a little bit more on the solutions that CTU offers in terms of skills development and occupational certification?
So CTU, working very closely with UXi, you know, we don't do the planning as such of the workplace skills plan, but we, in collaboration with our clients, we can actually help them do the planning, because we do a lot of the skills programs that's needed for the BE scorecards to get your points. And if you're looking at programs like your Learnerships, your Bursary programs, your short courses, your skills development programs. So those are all the type of training interventions that we can deliver. By saying that, we don't just, when we run a program like a learnership program, obviously there's very specific specs that needs to be met by running that program. So we will help our clients when they sign a contract with us to run a learnership. We can help them with the recruitment of those students, make sure that they get the best candidates if it's an unemployed learnership. We can do placements of our career students that's completed their qualifications for internships at the client's premises. So we're not just a training provider where we just supply training. We do actually have a bigger scope on what we can do. And then obviously, I always say to the clients, a lot of our clients, when they do their planning for their WSP, they need to kind of think, how can they maximize that? We can assist them with the type of interventions that we offer on doing the planning. So if you're sitting there, and I know we've only got a month and a half left and everybody's really getting gray hair. I know the WSP ATR is really a daunting process. If you struggle with that, don't try to think out or thumbsuck what you need to do to maximize your rewards or the spend, or making sure that your mandatory grant gets approved. Come to us. We can sit, even if it's just to assist with a quote for specific programs that you need to add to your WSP. CTU can assist with that as well. Okay.
Fantastic. And I also know that CTU is partnered with various technical vendors such as Microsoft and CompTIA and AWS, correct, among others, which relates back to what you mentioned about making sure that your training provider is a training partner officially of many of these select vendors. Okay.
Yes, sorry, Caroline, I just want to add to that. Yes, we are vendors for all the Microsoft, AWS, CompTIA. So we are accredited. So it's accredited training that you're certified. You can certify yourself on any of their courses. But also to say that, now there's a very nervous environment in South Africa with our legacy qualifications migrating to occupational certifications. The processes that gets followed. The QCTO is really they're really struggling to get to accrediting all the qualifications and migrating all the qualifications. And that is where you need to look at someone, and CTU are fortunate that we've started the process quite early. So all our qualifications that we offer, the ones that has been registered with the QCTO, we have migrated to them already. And the processes, and there's a lot of changes, where normally your stock standard legacy qualification was a year. You're looking at occupational certifications now, that's about 2 years, or some of them 3 years. How does it work for you? How can you do that and form that part of your planning, your skills development planning? Please, you guys are any client can phone us. We can give them that advice. We are there. We're doing it. So it will definitely help and assist them, not only to deliver the training at the end, but to do the planning for the training.
Yes, I've shared both companies' web addresses on the chat. To our panelists, you're more than welcome to also share details if you have any additional details that you would like to share. Otherwise, attendees can visit the websites and contact them through there. I want to move over to our questioning. We do have 2 questions in the chat. While I am going to read through them, I just want to encourage our audience again, if you have any more questions, now is the time to post them, as we will be answering a couple of the questions that we already see in the chat. Charmaine, I do believe the first one is more for you. This is from Wisdom. Wisdom is asking which BE level is eligible for grant and CETA.
Denise can just also confirm, but it differs from CETA to CETA. Some of them require the submission of a BE certificate, but not all of them. And when you apply for grants as well, sometimes discretionary grants are given to or are offered to employers that doesn't have contributions to STL. The important thing for discretionary grants is if you are contributing to STL levy, but it also differs from grant and from CETA on if you need a BE certificate for that.
Is there a resource where our audience can go look at these specific requirements per CETA?
He's welcome to send us an email, give us more specifics on this CETA, and we can definitely help him on a more specific basis.
Fantastic. Wisdom, they have shared their contact details in the chat, so please feel free to make use of that. The next question is from Tanya York. Tanya asks, again, thank you for the webinar. It's a great pleasure, Tanya. Any tips for streamlining our training and procurement tracking? Currently, we manage our WSP manually in an Excel spreadsheet, which involves laborious tasks like adding new trainees and suppliers each year. Is there a more efficient system available? We're looking for something that automates reminders for BE certificate expiry and seamlessly transfers employee training data to the next year if needed. In essence, we're seeking a system to expedite WSP and ATR management. Any suggestions?
So I think from a WSP side, it all depends also which CETA you are registered to. If you're not sure which CETA you are paying levies to because you're paying the levies to source, you can check on your EMP document that will show you exactly which CETA you are registered to. So each CETA has a different system where the mandatory grants get submitted. Some CETAs has it where you could do it on an Excel sheet. You upload the Excel sheet. Other systems have it where you can't upload any bulk information. So I think if you are really struggling with the WSP and the ATR management, I think you then need someone to assist you to take that task over from you so you can give that or head back to someone else and you don't need to take that on yourself.
I definitely agree with that. That's where the administrative labor comes in that you can help solve. Okay, we seem to not have any more questions. And if our audience doesn't have any more questions, I would like to encourage you to reach out to our panelists. Their contact details are shared in the chat. We also will send you an email with the recording and just some more information to reach out. So please be on the lookout for that specifically. I think in addition to that, just to address our panelists, is there any other closing points that you would like to add to the discussion before we conclude? Right.
I just want to say from a CTU point of view, thank you for attending our seminar or our little webinar. And like Carleen said, you know, there's the whole skills development, planning, workplace skills plan, ATR. It's a very daunting process. Unfortunately, it is a process that you cannot do just in one day. We try, but we can't. So it's a continuous process. You know, it's planning right throughout the year. And that's why I'm saying, you know, if it is a process that's quite daunting for you as a company, try to partner with someone that can assist you with that can keep up to date. I know you mentioned that you would like to have reminders for your BEE and certificates and expiry dates and stuff like that. So if you partner with someone that can assist you with that, that actually helps a lot. And then also when you do the training interventions and all the training thereafter, there's a lot of documents requirements. You know, you need to have attendance registers. There's so many little things that you need to put in place for that before you do an audit on your training interventions. Make sure that whoever you do it with, you know, they actually assist you with that, because that is the documentation, that's the specs that's needed for you to complete all those processes for the audit processes. So make sure that you get someone that can assist you with that. Then it shouldn't be your problem. It shouldn't be that daunting for you at all.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, that includes our webinar for today. I just want to say thank you to all our attendees for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure hosting you. I also want to thank our panelists today for your hard work in preparing for today's session. And also thank you to UXi for your constant collaboration with CTU. It is an absolute pleasure to host with you. And we hope to also collaborate in the near future again for any of our more informative topics on these specific areas. Thank you so much. We hope you all have a great day, and we look forward to connecting with you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.